Stacy Powers Cuellar has been the executive director at Brava since 2012. She began her career in nonprofit arts at the San Francisco Mime Troupe. After leaving the Mime Troupe, Stacy joined Dr. Loco's Rockin' Jalapeno Band as business manager and has worked or served over an additional dozen nonprofits and arts organizations in San Francisco. Stacy produces and presents thought-provoking art as Brava continues to be a center for igniting social change and building community. With 30 years of arts administration and production experience in San Francisco, she ushered in a new era of stability for Brava, revitalized its long-standing youth program, The Running Crew, revived the capital project to renovate the building's 3 storefronts, and launched Brava Presents to deliver an eclectic array of music, theater, dance, visual, and media arts work in collaboration with local artists and arts organizations. Stacy Powers Cuellar continues to be a warrior for the arts and the community. She is a force to be reckoned with. In this commentary about the RAMA Blueprints live discussion, Tres Generaciones, 3 Voices, she shares with us her life's work as an arts administrator in the Mission District, the role of Brava in the community, and the importance of stories and storytelling for future generations, and the healing evoked through this experience. We present her commentary. When did you come to San Francisco?
Since I moved to the San Francisco in 1982, I started living in the Mission in 1983 and working at the Mime Troupe on Treat 21st, right around that time. Just kind of coincidentally, I used to sew a lot, and so I started making costumes for the Mime Troupe and just found myself in the Mission. I found an apartment in the Mission on 23rd Street, and it was pretty amazing time in the 80s in the Mission. It was buzzing all the time, you know. There was so many artists living throughout, like from Bernal to the Outer Mission, in the Inner Mission. And so there was always poetry readings or gallery openings or performances. Like the York Theater, the first time I went there was in 1983. I think John Santos was doing a lecture on the history of salsa music, and he screened a movie about Machito. And I just I randomly went to that, and I was just blown away. And then I ended up volunteering stage managing for the Encuentro del Canto Popular that Acción Latina was presenting. That's how I met Bill Martinez and Francisco Herrera and Betty Pazmiño and Juan Gonzalez. I did that for a few years. And then in the meantime, I was doing a lot of work with the Mime Troupe up until 1989. So I was just hanging around up and down 24th Street. There was not a lot of reason to leave the neighborhood. It was so poppin'. And I just learned a lot. I learned a lot about all of the dynamics in the Mission, all the different folks that were coming from all over. You know, it was an Italian neighborhood, an Irish neighborhood. My family's Irish descent. I did costumes for Carnival one year. So it was just very welcoming community in some ways, and very joyful and very celebratory, which was really nice to be around. Certainly had its challenges, but I'm still here.
That's awesome. When you think about that particular evening that we were there and those stories were being told, how could this wisdom continue to be shared? And how do you see Brava as an organization that could be in the leadership of creating más pláticas, más círculos, sustaining not the theory or the methodology, but the action of La Cultura Cura?
I came to Brava in 2012, and I had worked with lots of different organizations, both from a production management, also a administrative person, financial person. So I worked at a lot of different organizations, and I saw how everyone worked. Dance Mission, Frameline, Galeria de la Raza, just to name a couple. And small from QuackMap, Queer Women of Color Media Arts Project. They were fresh meat, small organizations of $100,000 up to a $2 million organization. So I saw how all the different organizations worked at different levels. I had been involved in the building of Brava since the early 80s, from doing neighborhood stuff and community activities. My later husband performed there, and my daughter grew up in the neighborhood, went to school, did her graduating, did her culminating events at Brava. It's a vortex of energy, that building in that place. And around 2011, when it was going to close and it was in really bad shape, the building was in foreclosure. I was just asked to come and help, like, figure out if it could be saved, to do an analysis of the infrastructure and figure out how could the building be saved for the arts community. And so that's kind of what I was really focused on. And my experiences with all the other of the organizations I work with, those that had partnerships were the more successful and struggled less than those organizations that tried to be more independent and on their own. And also, my own history with the building in the neighborhood showed me that this building was for a lot of different people and not just one group of people. And that was always the struggle at the theater level too. Like, I remember when Brava for Women in the Arts bought the building, there was a lot of pushback for a lesbian organization owning the building and the property. But it was also still used by so many other different folks. Loco Bloco moved in 1996. And so that's all I did. I just tried to carry that forward, the partnership, like reaching out to Acción Latina and reaching out to Galeria and reaching out to Dance Mission and making kind of giving people subsidies and rental subsidies so that they could do their projects at the theater. Be in a professional space that was really affordable. That's what also works for the kids and the kids program as well. Like, to have these, like, really well furnished venues with a good sound system and a light system. And the kids can learn all this stuff. They learn these skills so that they can take them forth in their lives and be better people or have some job skills. So it's an incredible place for lots of people to move through on a daily basis. There's like about 30 to 40,000 people that come in and out of the building, and the 3 venues and opening it up for the community, it's the only way to survive from my perspective.
Right.
It's the collaboration, right? It's the collaboration with the artists, the collaboration with the community. And you just kind of like look at, okay, you have this and I have this. And if we collaborate, we could have something more together.
Right. So once you made the decision to say, well, let's bring this live podcast here, let's see how does this build community? What was so significant and special about the live podcast, and what are your reflections?
Well, again, I think it's the cura part of the cultura, right? Because
Right.
rap school meant a lot in this neighborhood, helped a lot of kids transition in an environment that's supportive and understanding. And the mission, well, has had a lot of challenges as a working class neighborhood. And so rap was a very important tool in helping people just live and work together. So, and then when rap closed, and it was a very difficult time for a lot of people in the neighborhood. And so, like, bringing it back, the reason why you're doing the podcast, the reason why you're like talking about this history is because it helps people have a better understanding of how we got to where we are, and also all the people that played roles in that. And there was sadness and bitterness around that breakup that needs to heal, right? So it's really about having a gathering place where people feel safe and they can talk about things that happen and bring, like, the 3 generations of people together so that there's just a greater understanding. Like because who was in that room? But there was 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, as well as, you know, Poncha and all the people that, the IFR folks and the CARECEN folks, we've all been working in this neighborhood together for so many years now. So it helps just to like remember why something was done, but also how do we let it go in a peaceful way? How do you honor Mitch? How do you honor what the good things that the program delivered for the neighborhood and for the kids and the families?
Mhm.
That's when I look at our families, so the Cuica Kali program or the mariachi program, when the kids do that work and they take it home, it resonates in the family. It's not just isolated. There's pride that, your kid is succeeding in some way or being embraced in another way. And so that's really important for us too.
Why do you think people don't come together and have those conversations,
Mm.
talk about art and resilience? Why do you think that isn't happening as much as it used?
Well, I think people are always trying to organize. I mean, if you look at the history of the mission, there's just since the 70s, particularly since Los Siete, that neighborhood is organized. The mission is a lot of organizations.
Right, right.
It has a lot of people who are trying to create pathways of survival. And that's hard work, and it stresses people out, and the obstacles for, like, Instituto Familiar de la Raza to work with people who have a real difficult time navigating through the social systems here, or Centro Legal, or, all the service organizations.
Mhm.
That's very exhausting. It's tiring, both for the people seeking support and help, and also the caregivers and the people who are supporting, or even like Carecen and the work they do, right? So I think in the art, it's another way to do the work. It's very stressful in creating and bringing all the pieces together. When the curtain goes up and people, the audience and the artists have come together in this space, it's magical. There's magic in the room. It's full of emotion. It's full of connection. When you think about the Brava slash York slash Roosevelt Theater, you're thinking about almost 100 years of people sitting in that venue night after night and just having these transformative experiences, whether it's through film or a concert. So I think performing arts, visual arts, the mural arts are just ways that people can come together to make things and create
Mhm.
things that reinforce all those other social systems that people need to manage and get through.
Mhm.
So it's been really fascinating to be in the mission for us all of these years and being involved in this dynamic, especially like in COVID. By April 2020, UCSF and the Latino Task Force created the Unidos en Salud and this whole way of organizing the community to make sure that the least amount of people died and the most amount of people got help
That's right.
in some format, and that came through testing and later on vaccine, and also the community wellness team where they delivered food and medicine and cleaning supplies, also gave people stipends if they couldn't work. And you're talking about like on Mission Street, apartments with like 18 people in them, 32 people in them who were trying to like work in the restaurants and all the businesses here in the city.
Mm.
And so I'm talking about that in particular because Brava's the fiscal sponsor of that project
Right.
with UCSF and the Latino Task Force to help support that project, which is still ongoing now. And they do Mpox testing, they do HIV testing, they do vaccines for flu, monkeypox. They distribute Narcan. So we still fiscally sponsor this site at the corner of Cap and 24th. That's partly staffed by UCSF and other folks in the neighborhood. So we depend on each other. to help each other, help people get through, and you can't like stop, right? Somebody always has to be like picking up the mantle because somebody's going to get tired and then somebody else. It's just nonstop. Yeah. Go ahead.
Along those lines of what I hear is community, action, art has played a significant role in that. And so it's good information to share out there with folks that Brava, being an arts organization, is a fiscal agent for all these services that were provided through COVID. And I think that's extremely important. And specifically, what resonated for you that night in hearing this conversation?
Yeah. I mean, it's always wonderful to hear Concha speak as a wise person, as again, someone who brings context to things that a younger person may not know or see or understand. So that was really moving, knowing Oscar since maybe he was in his 20s, to see the things that he's done and how he reflects on that was really nice. But I do think what Fatima said for me, and we talked about this a little earlier, was resilience is not a solitary act.
Mm-hmm.
In order to be resilient, in order for us to kind of move things forward in a more, healthy and balanced neighborhood, society, city, everything's so out of whack. So how do we like show people where balance is? You might be out of balance, but there's balance and you can see it. And that's what we're all kind of moving towards. And we all have to work together. And that's like the beauty of having Brava and having the cabaret on the street along the 24th Street corridor, which is not just Brava, but it's also Presida Eyes Muralists. It's also Acción Latina and Tecolote. It's also the Calle 24 Latino Cultural District. There's Dance Mission. There's Mission Cultural Center. And lots of artists and art shops in between, and all these organizations that like live and work along the corridor just makes you just feel like you're part of a greater, bigger picture than just you're trying to survive your own little organization.
Some final thoughts of just that night. Why this live podcast?
Well, we've been doing Indomitas podcast with Chalice Lopez for the last almost 2 years now. And again, it's the connection, it's the storytelling. And then having you approach us to have it there just was a yes, because it's based in community. It's based in healing community. It's based in helping people have a greater understanding. And that's what it is for me. That's why, when you told me you were doing this, I just felt like it's perfect for what the neighborhood needs. Like, because, you're constantly under barrage, whether it's economic or housing or whatever, parking tickets. Get people who come into the theater who like come to see a show. They're coming from like, I can't park. I have babysitting. I have this like a disheveled life. And I just love the idea when people walk in and have an experience of listening or of watching and listening to stories or watching stories. It just transforms people. It's magical. So what you guys are doing is magical. You're making a magic to help open up paths in people's lives. So you're not just like, stuck in your own head all day, because that's what makes us crazy.
We've been talking to Stacy Powers Cuellar, the executive director of Brava, and thank you. And I look forward to continue to making more magic.
Yeah.
As Darren says all the time, let's continue to make magic. Thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to continue to working with you. Thank you for your words today.
Thank you, Socorro. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Please consider donating to RAMA Blueprints at the CARECENSF.org website or the link in the description. Please subscribe to our podcast and share it with 2 people. This episode was produced and edited by Darren J. De Leon and Socorro Gamboa for the Five Sisters Audio Garden. Thank you for listening. And remember, to listen is to heal. All power to the people.